Are you ready? Stand by.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Christian here, continuing our Glock series. Today we're going to talk about upgrading the Glock trigger. We'll talk about some benefits, why someone might want to do it. We're also going to discuss my personal journey and the different triggers I've tried, and ultimately what I settled on and what my thought process was. Before we head over to the table cam review, if you have been enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know if there's any kind of related content that you'd want to see. Alright, let's head over to the table. Alright, so before we get into the actual changing of the trigger, first let's just do a safety check. Weapon is clear, no mag, good to go. What I have in here right now is the OEM stock trigger. So there's a trigger that comes with Glock. So let's do a quick 3-pull average. I actually have this in here. Sorry, this isn't the. It comes with a dot connector. I'll explain all that in a second. But this is. Let's check out the trigger pull in here with a minus connector. £4.8 pounds. 4.78 pounds, 4.44 pounds. It's about 4.5 pounds. A little over 4.5, between 4.5 and 5 pound trigger pull. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take this down. So, I'll just give you an example here. So this is actually the Glock Performance Trigger. You can get this, a lot of different places will have this for sale. Main differences between the GPT, the Glock Performance Trigger, and the OEM factory trigger is this flat face shoe here. And also, the GPT utilizes a fully pre-cocked striker, where the original only partially cocks the striker. That leads to the GPT having a shorter, cleaner, and a smoother trigger pull than the original. Now, the trigger bar I'm talking about is this piece right here. So the piece that's in here is actually the dot connector. You can actually, I'll take it apart to show you. This is the Glock Performance Trigger. It's supposed to be the best type of trigger that you had on here. So this is the first thing I got to replace my trigger, the stock OEM one. Now, we'll do that, and I'll show you the process on doing that right now on replacing the entire trigger housing. We're going from a regular OEM trigger to a Glock Performance Trigger. And I'll get into the nitty gritty and the details of some of the stuff a little bit into the video. Alright, so first thing you're going to want to need is a punch. You don't necessarily need a punch block, but I like to make sure I catch all my pins. So I'll just be using this area here. You want to move this pin above the trigger and then this pin along the back strap here. There are 2 pins you'll need to remove. If you have an earlier gen of Glock, I believe there's a 3rd pin here you need to remove as well. Alright, so once you have those 2 removed, again this is Gen 5 Glock. Once you have those 2 pieces removed, you're going to want to take, I actually just used that back end of my punch and pry up this piece here. Put that aside. You're going to go ahead and grab this part right here and just lift up. You're going to see the slide stop slide release lever come out as well. And here is the stock OEM trigger. And it's just drop-in kit. So it's already put together. All we need to do is place this in here, just like we did. Just like we pulled that one out, just reverse steps. I need to squeeze here a little bit to fit it in. Drop it in there, and then working backwards. Now, actually, let me pull that out because I want to show you all something with these pins. This is the pin that goes through here, and what it holds together is the slide stop, slide release, the block right here, and this is everything that the pin goes through. Now you'll see there's grooves in this pin, 2 grooves in this pin, so that it locks into place when it's a little tighter when everything's in there, but you'll hear it click into place when it's actually in there correctly. So let's go ahead and keep that in mind as we go ahead and start putting this back together. And this is the direction that the block goes. And you should be able to see, I don't know if you can tell or see through this hole here, but stick the pin through, everything is aligned. When you're putting this pin in, you might have to, wiggle the stuff around to make sure it gets all the way through. You're going through 3 items here, it might not be perfectly lined up. Pull out the trusty hammer and muscle it through. Now, the important thing is once you have it there, you're going to want to push a little bit more until you hear the click. Let me hold it up here so you see if you can hear it. Hear that? Do it again. Alright, so it's not in there yet. That click. That's how you know that that's in there correctly. And then of course, the pin from the back strap, or from the grip over here. And this is good to go. So now we can put it together, functions check, and trigger pull weight. So here's the trigger in action. There's a lot of take up still. You got a clear wall. You see where it's 90 degrees on the flat part of the trigger. A little bit of over travel, or a little bit of travel before that break, but the break is audible and clear. There is some travel after you rack the slide. After the slide racks, there's some over travel there. Short reset. This is still infinitely better than the one that comes stock in the Glock. Let's see what the weight is. .9, 4.2, 4.02, 3.72. So about 3.5, 4 pound pull, which is an improvement over the 4.5 to 5 pound pull with the stock Glock trigger. And there you go, that's a 1-to-1 swap for triggers. Now, if you want to get a little more detailed, stick around. Now this is the original OEM trigger that came with the Glock. Alright, I want to talk about this bar here. It's not the trigger bar, it's the I'll put the name somewhere scrolling. I forgot what kind of bar it is. It is the whatever. I'll put it in there. It'll be somewhere along the bottom here. Alright, so I pulled off, sorry, let me show that to you again. With a stock trigger, you just twist this part off to remove the trigger shoe and trigger bar. That's the trigger bar. And then this is the one we want to take a look at. It hooks into here, just put a punch in here to push it directly out. So this bar, see this, let me see if I can get it. Come on, I don't know if you can catch that. The screen's a little small, but there's a minus right here. So this is a minus connector. That's the word.
I knew you had it in you.
Alright. There's different types of connectors for Glocks. There's the minus, there's a dot, there's a plus. Minus means a lighter trigger pull. Dot's the standard trigger pull. And there's a thing somewhere. I'll also throw up another graphics somewhere around here to show you what those trigger pulls are based off of the connector. So I did have the stock Glock with the minus. The one that's in here, I will pull that out in a second. But if I put the minus in here, this will probably drop this trigger squeeze down to, the trigger pull down to about 2.5 or 3 pounds. Alright. I played around with these quite a bit before I felt like the most comfortable for me, which was this 3.5 to 4 pounds. I did make another alteration. This isn't the actual trigger that I use. I went and got a Vex shoe, which is this. So I got this Vex shoe from, what was it? Ranger Proof Gear. They worked with Johnny Glocks on the Johnny Glocks Vex shoe. So I got this Vex shoe because, you know, my color. Plus there's a little bit more to it than that. Now the problem that you would have is that this is how the OEM Glock shoe comes. You can see the pin here, but there's nowhere to punch it out here. I did have an OEM shoe attached to this trigger bar previously, and then I'll show you the end result. Essentially, here's the part where you can see. This is another OEM trigger shoe. You can see the pin here. Essentially, you tap this pin to see that where that pin pops up, and then you pop that pin out to remove the trigger bar from the shoe. And then once I had the trigger bar isolated, I had the Vex shoe here. This is a set screw. It's not a pin. It's just a set screw in there. So I put the trigger bar in there to go ahead and attach it to this trigger shoe. And this is all set. So now, took this Glock Performance Trigger. Remember, 3.5, 4 pound pull. This is not the trigger set I use. What I did at one point was I took the Glock Performance trigger housing, which is different than the OEM trigger housing, the Vex shoe with a minus connector, and that was a little too light for me. But I balanced this out. Alright, so again, we're going to take a look at the trigger bar here, or the connector, sorry. The connector I put on this is the dot connector. The dot has a bit of a heavier pull than the minus. So when I had this shoe on the Glock Performance Trigger with the dot connector, it was about 3.25 to 4 pound pull, which is what I wanted, and I was fine with that. You'll see why, but I actually went back to this trigger bar, which is the OEM trigger bar that comes with it. There's another piece that I added to my Glock for safety purposes. I'll go over that in another video. It's the Striker Control Device, SCD. And I'll go over the installation of that in another video, but this is essentially what I started going with. And I put the minus connector on this. So we're going to go ahead and put the trigger housing back together here with the minus connector. Pop the minus connector back in to the OEM. If you're ever taking this trigger bar out, when you put it back in and you want to twist it in, it has to go under this lip that you see right here. This is for the OEM one. Twist it in. So now it's in there. And again, I did remove the OEM shoe and replace it with the Vex shoe here. So now this is ready for drop-in. Now remember, the OEM housing previously with the minus connector was at 4.5, 5 pounds. Alright. Functions check. Good to go. Now here's the part of the reason I did this with this trigger. Much less travel. There's still a bit of travel, pre-travel, but much less than before to get to that wall. The wall is a little more defined. And then the reset, there's no over travel there. And the reset, just as short as the performance trigger. That's why I wanted to use. That's why I use this shoe. Now, what does it pull? What does it pull at? 4 pounds. 3.58. 3.86. Same as Glock Performance Trigger with a dot connector. Is the same as the Vex shoe, the OEM trigger housing with the minus connector. And that is the sweet spot that I personally prefer. If you guys want to carry something a little lighter, a little heavier, it's completely up to you. I will tell you I've done a lot of different iterations of putting these things together. This is the configuration that I like. This is the configuration that I run with. Vex trigger, OEM trigger housing, and the minus connector. That is the configuration I prefer. Pulls at 3.5 to 4 pounds, and that's what I like to use for this being my carry gun. Depending on what you want to use this for, such a versatile gun, you can put a comment. Let me know what you're looking for, and I'll tell you what combinations I've done. I've taken this thing from 2.5 pound trigger to 5.5 pound trigger, just in using all of these different items here. I do want to show you something specific about the Glock Performance Trigger. Where's that dot connector? Let me put the dot connector back in. So if you remember, the trigger bar on the stock trigger housing, it goes under that lip and just rotates in. It is a little different with the Glock Performance Trigger. It's not that simple. So you want to be able to get, trying to see the best way to show this on camera. There is a, I'll pull something else out here to show you. There's this spring down here, right? And if you look, and the spring that's in here has teeth. It's just got a spot here for something to sit in. And it has to sit in this little slot. But essentially, that needs to go on this part of the trigger bar, and then this needs to go above it. So it can take some playing. I know there's some places that have, so this has to go above here, all right? And at the same time, this needs to go into the grooves on that spring. There are some tools that exist that make this easier. I haven't done this in a while, so it might take me a second. I'll speed up the video if it's taking me too long. It's also helpful to know that if you ever mess up and this just spills out, comes out by accident, there is a way to put it back together. There you go. So there it is. There's the tooth in the spring. Let's try this thing again. There is the tooth inside that spring, inside the parts of the spring. There is the part connecting over here. Now this is put together, ready to go. Alright, well, if you found this video useful, I know I went over a lot of things, but if you found any of it useful, please comment, let me know, like, subscribe, share. In your comments, let me know what you thought, if there's anything else you'd want to find out, anything else that you want to see in the videos. Thanks again for watching. Appreciate all of you. Take care, everybody.